my dresser. I decided to move my dresser all by myself, and behind the dresser was this door. It wasn't a normal door, it was really short and just squared. It was also glued off, so I couldn't get into it. Me and my neighbor, who were best friends, worked at it for days to get into it. We finally got it open, and inside was another room. It was almost like an underground attic. The walls were wooden, the ceiling was wooden, there was no carpet, but it smelled awful. My parents found out and they were super mad at me for opening the room. They of course put that dresser in front of that door for a reason because they knew I would explore it. But after that, things started to get weird. Stay tuned for part 2. This is part 3 of my scary childhood story about the door behind my dresser. Because I wasn't sleeping and developed insomnia, my parents took me to a sleep therapist. The only thing the therapist gave me was a bunch of sleeping pills. Even though the sleeping pills worked, it made my dreams so much worse. I even started walking in my sleep. I would wake up all the time not in my bed. My covers would be all the way across the room like someone had dragged them over there. One night, one of my best friends slept over and we heard knocking coming from the door behind my dresser. That night when we went to bed, she started speaking really creepy gibberish in her sleep. I had to go get my mom to wake her up. I woke up a couple nights feeling like I was suffocating, and when I swung out of bed, I saw a silhouette of an old lady. My cat even started to sit there and meow and hiss at random things in the corners of the room. But there was nothing ever there. It got so bad to the point where I moved up into my brother's room.
If you want to be a nurse and you want to do it as fast as possible, ECPI is absolutely the place.
Has anyone ever told you not to do something and that just made you want to do it more? For these 3 girls, their curiosity would lead to something terrifying. These girls went to high school together and one night they decided to have a sleepover. They were also fans of horror movies, so they thought it would be nice to rent one out and watch it. They eventually found a video rental store on the street corner and went inside. They would soon regret this decision. They asked a woman behind the counter if she had any suggestions for horror movies that they could watch. The woman said she had the perfect movie for them and went into the back room. Then one of the girls noticed that an old and rusted videotape was lying on the counter. She picked it up and was instantly curious, but things got intense when the woman came back. She slammed her hands down on the old videotape and pulled it away. She said, "That's not something you should be watching." The woman wouldn't say anything else, only that it was a home movie. Then she handed them a regular horror movie. The girls agreed to rent that one out instead, but one of the girls was still too curious. She wanted to know what was in that old tape, so when the woman wasn't looking, she put it in her purse and left with it. When the girls came home, they decided to watch the old tape together, but what they saw on there would both shock and terrify them. Follow for part 2. This is how, for a group of college students, the game Among Us turned deadly. One night, Blair was playing with his friends through video call, Brayden, Allie, Jenny, and David. His screen flashed. "Crewmate, there is one imposter among us." A few seconds later, they all heard Allie gasp through their video call and say, "No, no, get away from me." But her character was still standing there, not dead, as if she was just away from the keyboard. After a while of not responding, Jenny goes to check on her. But as Jenny walked into her room, she found Allie on the ground, surrounded by a pool of blood. Then her computer screen flashes. "Dead body reported." At this time, Blair picks up the phone to call the police, but when he hears footsteps coming closer to his room, he opens the door to find Brayden in the common room holding a knife in one hand and a computer in the other. Blair shuts the door, opens the window to try to climb out, but he catches a glimpse on his computer screen one last time. "Dead body reported," with an image of his character. Can you solve this mystery? This is why you should listen to your roommate. Once there were 2 girls, Mary and Jane, who were best friends and roommates in college. They both had a huge exam coming up, but Mary got a text from her crush asking her to go to a party with him. Mary asked Jane to come with her, but she said that she couldn't because she wanted to study for the exam instead. Mary tried to convince Jane by saying she could just wake up early and study then, but Jane insisted on studying late at night, so Mary went alone. When Mary was at the party, she met up with some other friends who convinced her to stay at their place for the night. She agreed, but said that she had to go back to her room really quickly to get the keys that she forgot. Luckily, when Mary came back, the door was already slightly open. So she snuck in, grabbed her keys, and left the light off, not wanting to wake Jane. The next morning, Mary finally came back home. When she opened the door, she found Jane dead at her desk. Written on the wall in Jane's blood were the words, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" This is why you should be careful when trying homemade skincare. There's an urban legend about a girl in Korea who tried a DIY skincare treatment at home, but she could have never guessed how terribly wrong it would go. So this girl felt quite insecure about her looks, especially her skin. She wanted to have smooth and silky skin and was ready to do anything to get it. One day she learned about this new skincare treatment you could do at home. All you need to do is mix some sesame seeds in bath water and sit in it. It was supposed to stimulate your skin. It sounded simple enough, so she decided to try it. She went home, filled her bathtub with warm water, and added a jar of sesame seeds. But a few hours later, the girl still hadn't come out of the bathroom. Her parents started to get worried. They knocked on her door several times, but every time the reply would be just a minute, until her mother forced the door open to see if she was okay, but what she saw would terrify her forever. Her daughter was sitting on the bathtub. Her skin was covered from head to toe in black holes. The girl had a crazed look in her eyes, and she was digging into her skin with a pair of tweezers. The sesame seeds had sunken deep into her pores. Has anyone ever told you not to do something and that just made you want to do? Has anyone ever told you not to do something? Has anyone ever told you not to do something and that just made you want to do it more? Once, 3 girls went into a video rental store to find a horror movie to watch. They came across an old tape, but the woman at the store told them they weren't allowed to watch it. After one girl stole the tape, they decided to watch it together, but what they would see would terrify them. They pressed play. Suddenly, the room went into darkness, with only the TV on. On screen, they saw a woman tied to a wooden stake. She was surrounded by an angry crowd carrying torches, until one man walked towards the woman and set the wood beneath her feet on fire. The woman began laughing, and as the flames reached her face, she screamed that all who witnessed her death would suffer the same fate in 2 days. Then the tape cut off. The girls were scared, but eventually convinced themselves it was a prank. They decided to return the tape, but when they went back to the store, they found that it was gone. It was just an abandoned building. 2 days later, all 3 girls were found scattered across the city, their bodies burned beyond recognition. When the police investigated the strange coincidence, they found nothing around the girls had been touched by flames at all, except the trash can outside of one of their homes. Everything inside had been turned to ash except for one mysterious videotape, which was left untouched.